Welcome to Vulnerability, Introspection and Growth, the podcast where we explore the beautiful, messy and transformative magic that happens when we dare to go within. I'm your host, Robin Harris, and in each episode we'll dive into real, honest stories from people who've faced their fears, embraced their vulnerabilities, and discovered unexpected growth in their personal lives, careers, or businesses. This is a space for deep listening, open hearts, and soul-nourishing conversations. Because when we meet ourselves in our rawest moments, that's often where our greatest wisdom starts. Let's begin. Hello and welcome to another episode of Vulnerability, Introspection and Growth. And today I have a very special guest. I'm very excited to introduce Colin Parsons that is joining me here today. Hi, Colin.
Hi, Robin. Thanks for having me.
It's wonderful to have you here. And I will start, as usual, by introducing Colin. He is the creator and host of Vantage Point Conversations, a live, unscripted series he runs twice a week on LinkedIn. Built out of frustration with performative content and polished personas, the conversations are intentionally real, focused on listening, curiosity, and giving people space to think out loud rather than perform, which I'm hoping is very much what you're going to experience here too. That's definitely what I aim to achieve with this podcast. And Colin brings a natural ability to spot patterns, ask thoughtful questions, and draw out insights others often overlook. What lights him up is the conversation itself, the moments of honesty, reflection, and shared understanding, and helping those insights reach an ever-growing audience who value depth over noise. Perfect. You're the ideal guest to have on this podcast, Colin. Thank you.
That's all right. The imposter syndrome started to kick in the back of my brain, but yeah, it's a nice way to reflect because yeah, sometimes we overlook our own abilities, and sometimes you have to put them out there. And when they're reflected back to you, it's a bit like, oh, did I really say that? But yeah,
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 is that really me?
yeah.
And we will maybe touch on that when we get into the meat of the podcast, if I can say that as a vegan. But just to start off with the three questions that, if you've been following, you know, I always ask my guests just to help us tune in. What makes your story relatable for others?
Um, I think there's a lot. So I think all of our stories are different, but you can always take certain parts out of it. So in summary of who I who I was, so I grew up in Essex in the UK, lived in the same town my whole life, was scared of a lot of things, scared of life some days, just scared of people or situations. And then I actually moved to Luxembourg. So I was with a girlfriend at the time. She was from Germany, but had lived in Luxembourg. She said she would like to go back to Luxembourg or move into London, just purely for convenience of commuting to work. Something inside me said, yeah, go to Luxembourg, which on the surface is like, well, you have to move your whole life to another country. And there was something inside me that said yes. And we didn't go immediately. She did, and we lived apart for a little while. But for about 8 months, I had this internal battle with myself. And it was this voice, and I think there, it was just like, oh no, how'd you get out of this? How'd you get out of this? Or you've made the wrong decision. You made the wrong decision. But there was this quiet whisper underneath everything that went, it'll be all right. And it was so, I think it was my brain trying to keep me safe and say, no, try and get out of it because it's too exposing. It's not gonna work, etc. But the intuition said, no, it was okay. And
If
I've
I
had a
can
few,
just, Colin,
yeah,
if I can
sorry.
just stop you there, because these are just little snap questions and answers just to help people tune in, but hold
Yeah,
on to those fantastic thoughts because I'm
sure, sure.
sure they will be very, very relevant in our later discussion. But then, just again, a quick response to who do you feel will gain the most from listening to this conversation?
I would say non-A type go-getters. So anyone outside of that world.
I love it. And what do you hope people will take away?
Um, that everyone is unique. That yes, listening to my story may help, but we're all going through our own situations. Everything is different. Our backgrounds, our thoughts and perspectives, and that's a good thing. We don't need to mirror anyone else. It's just take comfort in, someone else's story, and if that gives you some insight, courage, bravery, anything from that, then amazing.
And I love that stories are so important. They're how we connect with others. They connect us to ourselves as well, don't they? And they can, when we're listening to somebody else's story, they can inspire, they can motivate, they can help us to maybe see parts of ourselves in what resonates in the other story. And I'm very much about listening to that quiet voice of intuition. But sometimes we hear that through stories that we get from other people. And yeah, stories are so valuable, I think. But going back to some of the changes you kind of alluded to there that you've had in your life, you've had some pretty big ones. You moved to Luxembourg, having grown up just in one town in Essex, and you later went through a divorce, and that you then built your own business.
Yeah.
So some pretty massive changes there. And would you tell us a little bit about how those left you maybe feeling exposed and vulnerable, but navigating that maybe led to something, some learning or some growth for you?
Yeah, I think maybe the divorce part, I think that was a big change for me. So um I'll give some background so it's maybe a bit easier for context. So was married, have two kids. They're currently 7 and 5. No, 7 and 6. Sorry, one's just had a birthday. Um and about 3 years ago, so I hadn't quite been happy in that relationship, and I think at the time my wife wasn't. I think we were doing things through obligation. We didn't want to break up anything, but we never really talked about it. We kind of alluded to things, and I think deep down, I was looking for my wife to make the decision for me to say it wasn't right, and uh, we weren't connecting in the way that brought the best out in me, and I'm sure it was the same the other way. And that's unfair for me to put words in my ex-wife's mouth, and you'd have to ask her. Um, and then we had kids, and I didn't know that I wanted kids at first, but they kind of grew on me. I wasn't one of these dads that, the baby came out and it was like, oh, miracle, my heart opens up. I'm maybe that works for other people. It wasn't the way it worked for me, but I grew to love these two little monsters in my life, and to break that up, and they were almost the best part of my day. And so there was a lot of confused feelings and something I didn't really deal with. At the same time, someone else entered my life, and I started having feelings for them. I didn't talk about it with anyone. I kept it to myself. I thought, oh, you're being like a schoolboy again. You had a little crush on the girl at school or something like that. And then basically I worked with this lady, and I found myself doing things outside of what I would normally do, and things that I just trying to get her attention again, a bit like you did in the school playground. And some things like nothing untoward necessarily, but I was like, that's strange behavior, and I couldn't quite wrestle with it. I just thought, oh, maybe things aren't quite okay in my marriage, and and I was having these feelings for this other lady. Cut a long story short, I entered into a relationship with this lady. I I will qualify that. In between, I tried to do a lot of things. I tried to distance myself, focus on other things, try to fix my my marriage without really being open and honest about it. I wanted all these feelings to go away. I didn't want to experience them. I even thought, wouldn't it be better if my ex-wife wasn't alive? Which sounds horrible. There was no intent to kill. I also thought, wouldn't this be easier if I wasn't alive? Wouldn't life be better without it? Not with suicidal tendencies. Not we're not. That's not what it was. But
It's just that
anything.
human thing, isn't it? Of the brain is, like you were saying earlier, trying to give you an out in terms
Yes,
of not
absolutely.
going to Luxembourg. It's trying to, how can we resolve this? It's just trying to problem solve. And it's throwing things out at random. It's not that you
Yeah,
actually think that, but it's just, well, we could do this. Of course not. We could do this.
yeah,
No. But
yeah.
the thoughts are still just being generated because your brain is doing what it's designed to do, which is problem solve.
Yeah, yeah, and protect, I think, also
Yeah.
in a way. So, but ultimately that led to my wife finding out. Um, and there was part of me that knew she would. I'm a very smart person, and again, I had that intuition. Like certain things popped up. I was mowing the lawn where in the house that we shared, and I was like, "This is the last time you're going to mow this lawn." And this is a couple of days before she found out. And that was horrible. And I caused her a lot of pain, but I needed to almost explode my world in order to change it because sometimes we can't find the energy, can't find the means to do that ourselves. It's too painful. And so for a long time that caused a lot of pain. Um, the the good thing about it is that we co-parent and we've always been able to put the kids above everything else. And I'm very proud of us, both of us, for being able to do that. And it had a lot of confusing feelings. I didn't know for the new lady that entered my life how that was. Was this feelings of lust, desire, the way that she made me feel, was that all because I wasn't feeling the same thing about my wife? And I, I've always grown up with a sense of loyalty, and so I was very conflicting. It's a very, very, very confusing time. Almost, I would say at some points I was thinking I was like schizophrenic because like, how can you be this way in front of your wife and then have these feelings about someone else?
I think
And
that's really important for just to pause a moment there because I think that's human. And I think that probably there are a lot of people, maybe people listening to this, who are experiencing that. How can I have this and this in one
mm,
person at the same time? Am
yeah,
I going crazy? Have I got a split personality? Have I got some kind of a disorder? Versus, no, my brain maybe is experimenting with things. What about this? What about this? Or I am conflicted. I've never sat down and really thought this through. What is it that I want?
mm,
You know, when you're offered a whole load of stuff on a plate, which one do I want? It's too much. I can't
mm,
choose because I really want that, but I really want that. And on the surface, they look contradictory. And sometimes they
yeah,
are, and sometimes they're not. But even when they are, we can hold conflicting things inside of us and still be one person, still be a
yeah,
sane person, so long as we can allow. Because a lot of the things you're talking about, they feel deeply uncomfortable and they feel messy and chaotic. But that's part of the growth process, I think. And I was listening to an audiobook today and it was talking about where that word chaos comes from. And it comes from that that kind of clash of different things which are a precursor to growth.
yeah,
Because if we didn't have that clash, like you said, if your ex-wife hadn't found out, where would things have gone? It was her finding out that was what blew things up, but it blew things up to allow things to kind of go up in the air and then land potentially differently. And for
yeah,
you to have that opportunity then to, right there, it feels like everything's fallen apart. How do I want to put it back together? What do I want it to look like? So I think it's that thing of destruction for something new to
yeah,
come out of it.
yeah. I think there was a number of other things. One of so when all this stuff happened, my ex-wife had a lot of questions, and I struggled to be honest because I felt a lot of shame. And then at some point, you go, right, I decided I'm just going to be honest about stuff. And that is hard. And you think, oh, once I've done it once, okay, she's going to ask me this question, I'm going to be honest. And that's very raw. And you feel shame. And then you go, okay. But then there's another question. And you go, oh, I've got to go through this again. And all at the same time, you know that to rebuild some sort of trust, you have to be as honest as you can. But you're also hurting that person that you've cared for and has been a part of your life. And that is, for me, it was insanely hard because the answer made her more angry. And it's just like, and again, I think, we try to protect ourselves, etc. And it's hard in the moment, hard for the times when you're apart, hard in terms of memories, but I think it is very necessary. I think also I I wasn't born a people pleaser, but I've spent most of my life as a people pleaser. And one of the things, so there was, I think what made the whole thing difficult, even I knew this new lady was, I've called her my soulmate, and I feel sometimes cringy saying that because but I said that to her. I knew beyond, almost like out of this world, who she was to me, without knowing. And uh, when my ex-wife was saying, "Well, what do you want?" and I couldn't say what I wanted, I felt it was something that I couldn't say. And I was trying to go, I tried to assess what my thinking was after this. But as a people pleaser, you putting myself first and saying exactly what I wanted is not a skill that I actually had, and I've had to learn it. And it's in that moment, when people are wanting answers, wanting the truth, wanting to say, well, what do you want? You're still trying to please everybody else.
And
And the
sometimes
problem,
you need a space to process
yeah,
because you haven't if you've never, like you say, never spoken about, well, what do I want? Maybe I've never asked myself, so I don't even know.
yeah. And this was a problem for me. I didn't know. And it was just this weird, it's like this whole new concept. And you're like, but what? And I was searching around. I was like, well, maybe it's that. And it's so I can't quite describe it, but it's like someone's giving you, I don't know, you can put your hand in this jar and take out everything that you want. And you go, I didn't even know that jar existed. Like, what is that?
And I don't know what's in
And
it, so how can I know what to pull out?
yeah, and then, but I think the people around me knew what they wanted. And so uh, how I was showing up was very confusing for other people. One of the other bigger things through all of this is that I lost a number of people in terms of friends and relationships. So I'm not someone that makes a lot of friends. Excuse me. And when we came to Luxembourg, a lot of the friends that we would hang around with or see from time to time were my wife's friends. And they cut me out of their lives. And that people pleasing side of me wanted to do almost damage control and understand, okay, do these people still like me? Do they like me? How do they see me? What is this? And provide excuses or reasons for my actions. And I tried to reach out to a few of these people, and I just got crickets, no response. I saw that they saw my message. And it's actually a very liberating feeling. It was quite horrible, especially when I had to move out very quickly, find a place in Luxembourg. Wasn't earning a lot of money. It's quite expensive to find places here. Um, yeah, I was pretty much scared shitless. Like, sorry for the language, but um, and then you just kind of want to hold on to something familiar, and those people that were in your life have cut you out with radio silence. And then I realized, at first I was sad and I would have done anything to get them not on my side. And people do sort of pick this sides thing, and I'm not really that sort of person. But what I realized is that I'd spent my whole time with these people trying to make sure that they had a good time and that they liked me. Yet I could do one thing and I was treated like a mass murderer or the worst person in the world. Without these people, even once coming, Colin, I don't really understand, but could you maybe explain it to me? Didn't even give me that. And I wasn't trying to, I fully admit what I did. I've never hidden that for 1 second, 1 second. But to have those people that you've actively gone out of your way to please, cut you out of their life, you're like, oh. And it was a way almost to blow up my life and stop people pleasing. Now, I'm not saying that I have stopped people pleasing, but I'm much more aware of it and much more aligned with myself. And I realized that you could be the best person in the world, and it's almost like you're not allowed. And if I say I made a mistake, I have to be very careful with this wording because at the time there was a lot of shame around everything, and I used that as almost as a way to justify what I did. And I took that with me just to try and make the story basically me the villain because then it was easier on the other people in my life to sort of say, oh, we'll point over there. The reality is we all play a part. Yes, I understand my part had bigger implications, but I don't think we've actually explored the other side of that. And I don't, and that's not for me to explore. But so I had all this shame and this guilt, and especially when you've cared for someone and you can see them hurting, and you know that you're the one, and that you're a people pleaser. So it's almost, fuel in the fire. But the reality is, people are just going to cut you out for no reason. Not no reason. They might have an opinions, but also people do have opinions over their life, and they go, they can't see why you would do something, and they would never get it unless they were in my head. And for a long time, I tried to justify, and if I could find a way to squeeze in, not an excuse, but explain what happened, I would. I've stopped doing that. I don't care anymore. And I've just focused on being me, building an amazing relationship with my kids, which is far greater than the one I would have been if I would have been with my ex-wife, because I always felt that I was Papa via the filter of Mama, whereas now I am unfiltered. For right or wrong, I am their dad, and we have the best connection in the world.
And I
And
think as
that's
well that you've been through all of this, recognizing what got you to that point, seeing your world blow up, fall apart, having to put it back together again, but getting to do that more intentionally, more with choice. And like you say, letting go of some of that stuff, maybe some of that stuff that was getting in the way, whether that was external, other people, or our own internal voices and stories and beliefs and how we see ourselves, that you then are able to be dad from that new place. And I love that you're describing things with a very kind of self-awareness,
Mm.
reflection that I think vulnerability brings once we've embraced it, once we've done that introspection. Because otherwise we just kind of keep on going, don't we? If nothing challenges us, if nothing blows up in our face, everything's just okay. We just keep going as we've always been going without having to stop and question, is this what I want? Is this serving me? Is this aligned with who I really am? Am I doing this for me or am I doing it for other people? But because of what's happened in your life, you've had to take a step back. You've had to rethink things. You've had to face up to stuff that none of us ever want to face up to. And it's been exposed to other people, which most of us don't want either. We want our uncomfortable stuff kept to ourselves so that nobody else sees it. But when it's all laid out and exposed anyway, we realize it's okay, I've survived. And
Yeah.
I get to survive as me rather than as who you thought I was.
Yeah.
even if it
Yeah.
does, like you say, mean that you lose those connections that you had thought were your friends.
Yeah. It's I heard this thing a while ago, and it says shame only exists in the darkness.
Mm.
And that's a lovely saying. But that doesn't help you when you're going through it. But the reality is, you realize that it gives you a lot more freedom in life. Like we have these social norms, what we should be, and it also questions your own values and morals. Because I never thought I'd be the guy that started another relationship while I was married, and so I would have judged people like that before. I would have gone, oh no, like, and when you go through stuff like that, your judgment of yourself has to change because otherwise it's too painful. And then you realize when you do that, your judgment of other people is like, well, I don't understand that full story, so why do I even have an opinion about it? And strangely enough, that energy that you put out is actually magnifying. People are much more attracted to you, not necessarily like attracted physically, but just your energy that you're putting out. And people can align with you and just feel okay to share some stuff that, and they find themselves, well, why am I explaining this to them? I've only just met them. And
Your
that's powerful.
energy is completely different. What you put out there, because I think in the bio that I used for the introduction at the start of the show, you were talking about real conversations, getting away from the noise and focusing in on the real. And I think it's very grounding, it's very centering, and that's what people see. They don't see there's no masking, there's no subterfuge, there's no I'm this on the surface and I'm actually something else underneath because I've faced my own demons and I've looked at my judgment and I've seen that, well, actually, it was maybe a bit flawed and it didn't serve me and I don't want it anymore. I've put that down. So I'm not judging me, but if I'm not judging me, I'm not judging you.
Mm.
So just come as who you are. You're accepted just as who you are, because I think that is a rare thing. Most of us have grown up with some kind of sense of people's connection to me, whether that's love, friendship, relationship, whatever it is conditional. But if somebody comes with, it's not conditional, it's you're just who you are, and I'm just who I am, and we're all messy, but it's fine. People see that, and it makes them want that connection, whatever type of connection that might be. But they just, I want some of what you've got, the
Yeah.
moth to the flame.
Yeah. And I'd say there's something important to carry. So I would say for about 2 years, I carried this story almost like a advertisement above my head. Almost that's, if I was to introduce myself, that almost came out of what I did, almost as a self-punishment. The biggest shift, and I had to go and see people to help me with this in different ways, and there's different methods for everybody. And then I let that go. And do you know what? When you let that go, the universe mirrors it back, and people are like, oh, but you have to let go of that story of yourself. That don't let that define you. I did it for a while to beat myself up, to justify, to feel that shame, to feel the pain, almost because I'd caused it to other people. But once you let it go, and I believe truly it is important when the time is right for you, but you must let it go. Must, because you are, that no longer defines who I am. And we can also sit in some perverse comfort having that as our storyline, but we walk away from that and we can start a new life. We can help ourselves, we can help others, and we're free and we can go on to other things, and that's important.
Beautiful point, as unfortunately we're out of time to wrap things up. But I think, yes, it's like you're saying, we get to the point maybe of recognizing that it is something I beat myself up with almost as a badge of honor.
Mm.
And that I was the person who did the wrong thing in inverted commas. I did the thing, whatever the thing was. I don't think there's necessarily a right and a wrong and a good and a bad, but it was the thing that I wouldn't choose to do again, the thing that was probably inappropriate in that situation, the way that I behaved. And it wasn't me at my best self. but I did it. It's done. And now I choose to grow and learn from that. And if I can let it go, I'm not holding anybody else either. That thing of if we hold on to anger or blame or guilt, we're actually holding on to the other as well. We're not letting them grow. So when I can let it go and be free, I'm setting the others free. I just want to thank you so much, Colin, for sharing so deeply and honestly, because it's been an honour to have this conversation with you today, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it, and I think if that can help other people understand themselves in that story, great. So yeah, I'm glad to be able to do it, and thank you very much.
And I'm sure there are people listening into this episode who are going to say, I need to talk to this guy. I need to connect with this guy. I want to tune into your conversations on LinkedIn. I want more. Where can they find you?
So I'm predominantly on LinkedIn. So that's where I do these live conversations. So Colin Parsons. The company is Vantage Point Conversations, but I do everything under my own name. I stream also to YouTube, Vantage Point Conversations, so you can find me there. Yeah, and yeah, it's easy to find me, I think.
Wonderful. And I will share Colin's links in the show notes below this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. As I'm sure you've seen, this has been an extraordinary conversation with Colin. And if you've enjoyed it and you'd like to follow more, then hit that subscribe button. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Vulnerability, Introspection and Growth. I hope it's given you a moment to breathe, reflect, and perhaps even see your own story with a little more compassion. If you find this conversation meaningful, I'd love it if you'd share, subscribe, or leave a review. It helps others find their way here too. Until next time, take gentle care, and remember, the journey inwards is where the real growth begins.